Okay, now I will know exactly what happens when I am not home.
Marriage is like drywall. You only notice the cracks when the paint peels, and by then, you're looking at a complete renovation or a total teardown. I'm Sam Rourke, 39 years old, project manager for Henderson Construction, and I've been staring at cracks in my marriage for months now. My wife Robin thinks I'm too stupid to notice them, which is her first mistake. Her second mistake was underestimating what happens when a guy who builds things for a living decides to tear something down. It started with the phone calls, late-night whispers behind closed doors, followed by that particular laugh Robin reserves for people she's trying to impress. Not the genuine laugh I fell in love with 13 years ago, but the practiced social climbing giggle that makes my skin crawl. "Who was that?" I'd ask when she'd hang up quickly as I entered the room. "Just Casey," she'd say, not meeting my eyes. "Girl talk?" Casey Morrison, Robin's college friend and current partner in whatever suburban mom conspiracy they were running. Casey, who'd been divorced twice and seemed determined to recruit others into her misery loves company club. Tonight was different, though. Tonight, I had proof. I was in the garage, organizing tools after a long day managing the Westfield Shopping Center renovation, when I heard voices through the thin wall that separated our garage from the kitchen. Robin was on speakerphone, and she wasn't being careful about volume. "I swear, Jules is so much more attentive than Sam ever was," Robin's voice carried clearly. "He actually listens when I talk." My hands stopped moving over the wrench set. Jules. Julian Grant, the real estate hotshot who'd been showing up at more and more of our social gatherings lately. 41, divorced, drives a Tesla, and has that practiced charm that works on women who think they deserve better than what they have. "Girl, you deserve to be worshipped," came Casey's voice through the speaker. "Sam's a nice guy, but nice doesn't pay for vacations in Cabo." Robin laughed, that fake laugh again. "Jules has been talking about this amazing property in Vermont, says we should check it out together." "Without Sam?" "Sam's got that big project. He'll be working weekends for months." I set down the wrench carefully, my construction-trained hands steady despite the rage building in my chest. 15 years of marriage, 2 daughters, a mortgage we'd built together, and she was planning weekend getaways with Julian Grant. "What about the girls?" Casey asked. "They'll be fine with Sam. He's always been the better parent anyway." That part stung more than the affair. Not because it wasn't true. I was the one who handled homework, packed lunches, showed up to soccer games, but because she said it like it was a weakness instead of a strength. I waited until I heard Robin's footsteps heading upstairs before I moved. In the kitchen, her phone sat on the counter, still warm from use. Robin had always been careless with technology, never bothering to change default passwords or lock settings. Her text messages told the whole story, weeks of increasingly intimate conversations with Julian, plans for their Vermont trip, discussions about what to do about Sam that made my blood run cold. The most recent message, sent just an hour ago. "Can't wait to have you all to myself this weekend. Sam will never know what hit him. Jay." I took photos of everything with my own phone, then deleted the evidence of my snooping. Upstairs, I could hear Robin talking to our daughters, 13-year-old Tessa and 7-year-old Mia, her voice taking on that artificially sweet tone she used when she was feeling guilty about something. "Daddy's going to be very busy with work," she was saying, "so we're going to have some special girl time this weekend." I climbed the stairs slowly, my work boots heavy on each step. In the hallway, I paused outside Mia's room where Robin was tucking her in. "Is Daddy coming to my soccer game Saturday?" Mia asked. "We'll see, baby. Daddy has a lot of work to do." Except I didn't have work Saturday. I'd specifically cleared my schedule to watch Mia's team play in the championship game. Robin knew this. I continued to our bedroom, where I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the photos on my phone. 15 years of marriage reduced to screenshots of betrayal. Robin appeared in the doorway 10 minutes later, already in her pajamas, looking like the woman I'd married instead of the stranger who'd been living in our house. "Hey," she said, settling onto her side of the bed. "How was work?" "Fine." I kept my voice level. "How was your day?" "Oh, same old stuff. Casey and I are thinking about taking the girls to that new indoor trampoline place this weekend." The lie came so easily. I wondered how long she'd been practicing deception, how many other lies I'd swallowed without question. "Sounds fun," I said. "I was planning to take Saturday off for Mia's game." Something flickered across Robin's face. Annoyance, maybe, or frustration that I was complicating her plans. "Actually, I already promised Casey we'd make it a girls' day. You understand, right? You've been working so much lately." I understood perfectly. I understood that my wife was a liar and a cheat, and she thought I was too stupid to figure it out. I understood that she was planning to spend the weekend with another man while I stayed home, wondering where my family had gone. Sure, I said. I understand. Robin smiled and kissed my cheek, the same perfunctory gesture she'd been giving me for months. You're the best, Sam. I don't know what I'd do without you. You're about to find out, I thought. But I just smiled back and told her good night. The next morning, I called in a favor from Vince Rodriguez, my old army buddy who'd gone into private security after his stint as a police detective ended badly. Vince owed me for helping him through his divorce 3 years ago, and he was the kind of guy who paid his debts. I need surveillance equipment, I told him over coffee at Murphy's Diner, far enough from our neighborhood that we wouldn't run into anyone from Robin's social circle. What kind of surveillance? Vince asked, stirring sugar into his coffee. He was a big guy, built like the linebacker he'd been in high school, with graying temples that made him look distinguished instead of old. The legal kind. Audio and video for common areas of my own house. Nothing in bedrooms or bathrooms. Vince nodded slowly. Divorce prep? Maybe. Depends on what I find. You want to be careful, Sam. Connecticut's a 2-party consent state for recording conversations. Not in my own house, with equipment I install myself for security purposes. True. Vince leaned back in his booth. What else do you need? A tale, professional, discreet. I need to know where my wife goes, who she sees, what she does. That's going to cost you. I've got money saved. Money Robin didn't know about from side jobs and overtime I'd been banking for years. How much? For you, $500 a day plus expenses. But Sam, Vince leaned forward. Are you sure you want to know? Sometimes ignorance really is bliss. I thought about Mia asking if I'd be at her soccer game, about Tessa's increasingly distant behavior as she picked up on the tension between her parents, about Robin's fake laugh and casual lies. I'm sure. That afternoon, while Robin was at her book club, or wherever she really went on Thursday afternoons, I met Vince at the house. He brought a duffel bag full of equipment that looked like it belonged in a spy movie. Wireless cameras, he explained, showing me devices no bigger than coat buttons. Audio pickups that look like smoke detectors. Everything feeds to an app on your phone. The good news is, your house is perfect for this. Lots of corners and hiding spots. We spent 2 hours installing cameras in the living room, kitchen, and family room. Audio pickups went in the hallway and near the front door. Everything was invisible unless you knew exactly where to look. The system activates with motion or sound, Vince explained as he showed me the app. You'll get alerts on your phone and everything saves to a cloud server automatically. What about outside? That's trickier. You can put cameras on your own property, but you can't record audio outside without risking legal trouble. Just video then. I want to know who comes and goes. By the time Robin came home, Vince was gone and I was back in the garage, apparently working on organizing my tool collection. She poked her head in to say hello, and I noticed she was wearing makeup she hadn't been wearing when she left. How was book club? I asked. Oh, you know how those women are. So much drama. She laughed, but it sounded forced. What are you doing out here? Just organizing? Thinking about building some new storage shelves? That sounds like a lot of work. I like work. Keeps me busy. She studied my face for a moment, and I wondered if she could sense the change in me. But then she smiled that practice smile and went back inside. That night, after everyone was asleep, I tested the system. The cameras had perfect views of the main living areas, and the audio was crystal clear. I watched footage of Robin making dinner, helping Mia with homework, arguing with Tessa about screen time, normal family moments that felt like scenes from someone else's life. Friday morning brought the first real test. Robin announced she was going shopping with Casey, and they might grab lunch afterward. She'd be gone most of the day. What about Mia's practice? I asked. Mia had soccer practice every Friday at 4. Can you handle it? I really need this time with Casey. She's going through a rough patch. Casey was always going through a rough patch. It was her natural state of being. Sure, I said, I'll take care of it. Robin kissed my cheek and left in her BMW, and I immediately opened the surveillance app on my phone. I watched her pull out of the driveway, then switched to the exterior camera that covered our street. She didn't turn toward the mall or toward Casey's house. She turned toward downtown, toward the expensive part of town where Julian Grant had his real estate office. I called Vince. She's moving. I'm on her, he said. Blue BMW, license plate JRX 4429. That's her. I'll call you in an hour. The hours stretched like a week. I tried to focus on work, reviewing blueprints for the Westfield project, but my mind kept wandering to what Vince might be discovering. At 11:30, my phone rang. "She's at the Marriott downtown," Vince said without preamble. "Went straight to the elevator with a guy in an expensive suit. Dark hair, about 6'2", drives a white Tesla. Julian Grant. How long have they been up there? About 45 minutes. Are you sure it's them? Sam, I've got photos. You want me to send them? I closed my eyes. Not yet. Just keep watching. You got it. They stayed at the hotel for 2 hours. 2 hours while I sat in my office, staring at construction schedules and trying not to think about what my wife was doing with another man in a hotel room on a Friday morning. When Vince called again, his voice was gentler. They're leaving, separately. She's heading back toward your neighborhood. Thanks, Vince. Send me the photos. The images arrived as text messages. Robin walking into the Marriott lobby, laughing at something Julian was saying. Julian's hand on the small of her back as they waited for the elevator. Both of them looking relaxed and happy in a way I hadn't seen Robin look in months. I stared at the photos for a long time, feeling something cold and hard settling in my chest. Not heartbreak. I'd moved past that. This was something else. Something that felt like the moment when you realize a building is structurally unsound and needs to come down. Robin came home at 3, just in time to help Mia get ready for soccer practice. She was humming when she walked in, and her hair looked freshly styled. How was shopping? I asked. Great. Casey found the perfect dress for her cousin's wedding. Robin bustled around the kitchen, putting together a snack for Mia. Did you know the mall has a new spa? We got manicures. I looked at her nails. They looked exactly the same as they had that morning. That's nice, I said. Ready to go, Mia? Mia bounded down the stairs in her soccer uniform, cleats in hand. Ready, Daddy? At practice, I sat in the stands with the other parents, watching my daughter run drills and scrimmage with her teammates. Mia was fast and fearless, the kind of player who threw herself into every challenge without hesitation. She got that from me, I thought, the willingness to fight for what mattered. My phone buzzed with a text from Robin. Having dinner with Casey tonight. Don't wait up. I stared at the message, then at my daughter, racing across the field, ponytail flying behind her. Mia deserved better than a mother who lied as easily as breathing. Tessa deserved better. Hell, even I deserve better. I typed back, have fun. But I was already planning something else entirely. Saturday morning arrived with the kind of gray, drizzling rain that made everything look washed out and depressing. Perfect weather for what I'd planned. Robin was up early, packing a small overnight bag with the kind of care she usually reserved for important business trips. She'd told the girls she was taking them to visit her mother in Hartford for the weekend, but I knew better. You sure you don't mind having the house to yourself? She asked, zipping up her bag. You could invite Vince over, watch the game? I'll be fine, might catch up on some work. She kissed my cheek, the same perfunctory gesture that had become her standard goodbye. We'll be back Sunday evening. I watched from the kitchen window as she loaded the girls into her BMW. Tessa looked sullen. She'd wanted to stay home and hang out with friends. Mia waved at me through the back window, her face pressed against the glass. As soon as they were out of sight, I called Vince. They're moving, I said. I'm ready. Ray's with me today. Ray Martinez was Vince's business partner, an ex-Marine who specialized in the kind of surveillance that required 2 vehicles. If Robin was planning something elaborate, we'd be ready. Where do you think she's really going? I asked. My money's on that Vermont property your boyfriend mentioned in the texts. My boyfriend? I almost smiled at that. Keep me posted. The first update came an hour later. She's not going to Hartford, Vince reported. Heading north on I-91. Definitely Vermont bound. What about the girls? Still with her? This is either really elaborate or she's actually planning to involve them in whatever she's doing. That possibility made my stomach clench. Robin was selfish and dishonest, but I hadn't thought she'd drag our daughters into her affair. But then again, I'd been wrong about a lot of things lately. The next call came at noon. She stopped at a gas station in Springfield. The girls are in the car, but she made a phone call. Looked intense. Could you hear anything? Ray got close enough. She was arguing with someone about sticking to the plan and making sure he doesn't suspect anything. He meaning me. That'd be my guess. At 2 o'clock, Vince called with the location. Luxury cabin rental about 20 minutes outside Stowe. Very secluded, very expensive. And Sam? Julian Grant's Tesla is already here. So there it was. My wife had taken our daughters to a romantic weekend getaway with her lover. The betrayal was so complete, so brazen, that I almost had to admire the audacity. Almost. "What's the plan?" Vince asked. I'd been thinking about that all morning. The old Sam would have driven up there, confronted them, made a scene. The old Sam would have let emotion drive his decisions. But the old Sam hadn't known what he was dealing with. "We wait," I said, "and we document everything. You sure? This is your chance to catch them red-handed." "I don't need to catch them. I need to destroy them." Vince was quiet for a moment. "Okay, but Sam, be careful. Revenge is a dish that can poison the cook. Not if you know what you're doing." I spent the rest of Saturday gathering intelligence. The cabin Robin had rented was a high-end property that cost $800 a night. She'd paid for it with our joint credit card, which showed either incredible stupidity or incredible arrogance. Probably both. Julian Grant's social media told an interesting story. Photos of him at various charity events, always with different women, always looking like the successful bachelor who had his pick of companions. His real estate business was thriving, built on a reputation for discretion and high-end service. What his social media didn't show was that he'd been divorced twice, both times for infidelity. It didn't show the maltreatment complaints from former female employees, or the fact that his business was leveraged to the hilt to maintain his expensive lifestyle. Julian Grant was a fraud, and my wife had fallen for it completely. Sunday morning brought more rain and another call from Vince. "They're packing up," he said. "Looks like they're heading back." "All of them?" "Yeah, the girls looked tired. Probably didn't get much sleep with all the adult drama going on." That made my jaw clench. Whatever Robin and Julian had been doing, they'd done it with my daughters in the same house. The selfishness of it was breathtaking. How long until they're home? 3 hours, maybe 4 with traffic. Perfect. I'll be ready. I spent the morning preparing. The house needed to look exactly as Robin had left it, like I'd spent a quiet weekend alone. I reviewed the surveillance footage from the previous day, making sure I had a clear timeline of events. At 4 o'clock, I heard the BMW in the driveway. Mia ran in first, full of energy despite the long drive. "Daddy, we went to this amazing place with a hot tub and everything." "That sounds fun, sweetheart. Did you have a good time with Grandma?" Mia's face scrunched up in confusion. "Grandma? We weren't with Grandma. We were with—" "Mia, go wash your hands," Robin interrupted sharply, appearing in the doorway with her overnight bag. "Dinner will be ready soon." Tessa followed, looking older than her 13 years. She gave me a long look that seemed to carry a message I couldn't quite decode. "How was Hartford?" I asked Robin. "Fine. Mom's doing well. You know how she is." Another lie, delivered without hesitation. I wondered how many lies I'd swallowed over the years, how many times I'd chosen to believe Robin instead of trusting my instincts. "That's good," I said. "I missed you guys." Robin smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "We missed you too." Later that night, after the girls were in bed, Robin and I sat in the living room watching television. She seemed distracted, checking her phone every few minutes. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Just work stuff. Big presentation on Monday." I nodded and went back to watching the game, but I was really watching Robin's reflection in the dark window behind the TV. She was texting someone, her fingers moving quickly across the screen. When she went to the bathroom, I checked the surveillance app on my phone. The living room camera had captured her entire texting session. The angle wasn't perfect, but I could make out enough to know she was talking to Julian. "Can't wait to see you again," I could read in one message. "Sam doesn't suspect anything," in another. "This is just the beginning," in a third. I sat back in my chair, feeling that cold, hard certainty settle deeper in my chest. Robin wasn't just having an affair. She was planning something bigger, something that involved our daughters, our home, our entire life. She thought I was too stupid to figure it out. She was about to learn how wrong she was. Monday morning brought the first real test of my new resolve. Robin left for work as usual, kissing my cheek and reminding me that she'd be late because of her presentation. I knew she was really meeting Julian, probably to plan their next move. I waited until 9 o'clock, then called in sick to work. My foreman, Pete Kowalski, wasn't happy about it. "Sam, we've got the electrical inspection today. You need to be here." "Marcus can handle it. I've got food poisoning or something. This better not become a habit." "It won't." I hung up and called Vince. "I need a favor." "What kind of favor?" the kind that might get complicated. An hour later, Vince arrived with Ray Martinez in tow. Ray was smaller than Vince, built like a welterweight boxer, with the kind of quiet intensity that made people nervous. He'd done 3 tours in Middle East and had the 1,000-yard stare to prove it. "What's the plan?" Vince asked. I spread out printouts on the kitchen table, surveillance photos, credit card statements, text message screenshots, and a detailed timeline of Robin's activities over the past 2 weeks. "I want to confront Julian Grant, but I want to do it right." "Define right," Ray said. His voice was soft, almost gentle, which somehow made him more intimidating. "I want him to know that I know. I want him to understand that continuing this affair will have consequences, and I want it documented." Vince studied the photos. "This is enough evidence for any divorce attorney in the state. Why not just file papers and be done with it?" "Because it's not just about the divorce, it's about my daughters. Robin's already shown she's willing to involve them in her lies. What happens when the custody battle starts? What happens when she decides they're just pawns in whatever game she's playing?" "So you want to scare him off," Ray said. "I want to destroy him." The 2 men exchanged a look. Vince leaned back in his chair. "Sam, I've known you for 15 years. You're not a destroyer, you're a builder. Sometimes you have to tear down the old foundation before you can build something new." Julian Grant's real estate office was in a converted Victorian mansion downtown, the kind of place that screamed money and success. His white Tesla was parked in the reserved spot closest to the front door. I sat in Vince's truck across the street, watching the building through binoculars. At 11:30, I saw Robin's BMW pull into the parking lot. "There she is," I said. "Right on schedule," Vince replied. "You sure about this?" "I'm sure." Robin walked into the building like she owned it, confident and purposeful. She was wearing her best business suit and the kind of smile she used to reserve for me. "How long do we wait?" Ray asked from the back seat. "Until they get comfortable." At noon, I walked into Julian Grant's office. The receptionist, a young blonde who looked like she'd stepped out of a magazine, smiled at me professionally. "Can I help you?" "I'd like to see Mr. Grant. It's about a property." "Do you have an appointment?" "It's urgent. Tell him Sam Rourke is here." She picked up her phone and spoke quietly. A moment later, she hung up and looked confused. "I'm sorry, Mr. Grant is in a meeting. Would you like to schedule—" "That's okay," I said. "I'll wait." I took a seat in the expensive leather chair across from her desk and pulled out my phone. The surveillance app showed my empty house, but I switched to the camera function and started recording. "Actually," I said to the receptionist, "could you tell Mr. Grant that it's about the Vermont property? He'll know what I mean." This time, when she made the call, I could hear Julian's voice through the phone, sharp and angry. She hung up quickly. "Mr. Grant will see you now. 3rd door on the right." Julian Grant's office was everything I'd expected. Mahogany furniture, expensive artwork, floor-to-ceiling windows that looked out over downtown. Julian sat behind a massive desk, trying to look calm and professional. Robin was nowhere to be seen, but I could smell her perfume in the air. "Mr. Rourke," Julian said, standing and extending his hand. "I understand you're interested in Vermont real estate." I didn't shake his hand. Instead, I placed my phone on his desk, still recording. "I'm interested in a specific property, a cabin outside Stowe. Very secluded, very expensive. I believe you're familiar with it." Julian's practiced smile faltered slightly. "I'm not sure what you mean." "Really? Because my wife spent the weekend there, with you and my daughters." The color drained from Julian's face. He glanced toward a door that I assumed led to a private bathroom or conference room, probably where Robin was hiding. "I think there's been a misunderstanding," he said. "No misunderstanding. I've got photos, credit card receipts, and surveillance footage. The only question is what we do about it." Julian sat down heavily. Up close, he looked older than his 41 years, with the kind of soft features that suggested he'd never been in a real fight in his life. "What do you want?" he asked. "I want you to stay away from my family. And if I don't," I leaned forward, keeping my voice level and calm, "then I'll destroy you, your business, your reputation, your entire life. I'll make sure every person in this town knows exactly what kind of man you are." "You're threatening me. I'm making you a promise." The door to the conference room opened, and Robin stepped out. She looked pale but defiant, like a child who'd been caught stealing but wasn't ready to admit it. "Sam," she said, "what are you doing here? Having a conversation with your boyfriend?" "It's not what you think." I turned to look at her, this woman I'd been married to for 15 years, and felt nothing but contempt. "It's exactly what I think. The question is, what are you going to do about it? Robin straightened her shoulders, and I saw a flash of the woman she'd become. Cold, calculating, completely selfish. I'm going to do what I should have done years ago, she said. I'm going to stop pretending to be happy in a marriage that died a long time ago. Fine, I said, but you're going to do it honestly. No more lies, no more sneaking around, and no more involving our daughters in your drama. The girls are my children too. Then start acting like a mother instead of a teenager. Julian cleared his throat. Perhaps we should all calm down and discuss this rationally. I turned back to him, and whatever he saw in my face made him shrink back in his chair. You don't get to speak, I said. You're a hunter who goes after married women. You're pathetic. Now wait just a minute. No, you wait. I know about your divorces. I know about the maltreatment complaints. I know your business is leveraged to the hilt and you're one bad month away from bankruptcy. You're not some successful bachelor. You're a fraud. Julian's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. Robin was staring at me like she'd never seen me before. How do you, she started, know all this? Because I'm not the idiot you think I am. I'm a project manager, Robin. Research is what I do. I picked up my phone and stopped the recording. You've got 24 hours to decide how this goes. We can handle this quietly, like adults, or we can make it public and messy. Your choice. I walked toward the door, then turned back. Oh, and Robin, don't come home tonight. I need some time to think, and the girls need some time away from whatever this is. I gestured between her and Julian. Stay with Casey. I'm sure she'll love hearing all the details. I left them sitting there, stunned and speechless, and walked out into the gray afternoon feeling lighter than I had in months. The real work was just beginning. That evening, I sat in my living room with Tessa and Mia, trying to figure out how to explain that their mother wouldn't be coming home that night. Tessa, sharp as always, made it easy for me. Mom's having an affair, isn't she? She said, not looking up from her homework. Mia's head snapped up from her coloring book. What's an affair? It's when married people date other people, Tessa explained with the weary tone of someone much older than 13. Like what happened with Madison's parents. I looked at my older daughter, wondering when she'd grown up enough to understand adult failures. How did you know? I asked. I'm not blind, Dad. She's been acting weird for months, and that guy at the cabin was definitely not Grandma. What guy? Mia asked. The man who was there with us, Tessa said. Mom told us to call him Uncle Julian, but he's not our uncle. My hands clenched into fists. Robin had introduced Julian to our daughters as family. The manipulation was breathtaking. Where is Mom? Mia asked, her 7-year-old brain struggling to process the adult complexity of the situation. She's staying with Aunt Casey tonight, I said. We need to have some grown-up conversations. Are you getting divorced? Tessa asked. The question hung in the air like smoke. I looked at my daughters, Tessa trying to act mature and unaffected, Mia confused and worried, and felt the weight of responsibility settle on my shoulders. I don't know yet, I said honestly. But whatever happens, nothing changes how much I love you both, and nothing changes the fact that you're the most important thing in the world to me. Mia climbed into my lap, and Tessa moved closer on the couch. We sat there in silence for a while, watching some Disney movie none of us were really paying attention to. My phone buzzed with a text from Robin. The girls need their mother. This is cruel and selfish. I showed the message to Tessa, who rolled her eyes. She's been cruel and selfish for months, Tessa said. At least you're being honest about it. I typed back, the girls are fine. They're with the parent who didn't lie to them. Robin's response came immediately. We need to talk. Tomorrow, I replied. After you decide what you want more, your family or your boyfriend. I put the phone away and focused on my daughters. Whatever was coming next, they were going to need stability and honesty. They were going to need a parent who put them first. The next morning, I got the girls ready for school as usual, but I could feel the difference in our house. It felt calmer somehow, like a constant source of tension had been removed. Is Mom coming to my soccer game Thursday? Mia asked as I braided her hair. I'll be there, I said. That's what matters. Will you bring the good snacks? The best snacks. After dropping the girls at school, I drove to work, where Pete Kowalski was waiting with a scowl and a clipboard full of problems. Feel better? He asked sarcastically. Much. What's the crisis? Electrical inspection failed. Apparently, someone installed the wrong gauge wire in the main panel. I spent the morning dealing with contractors and inspectors, losing myself in the familiar rhythm of problem-solving and crisis management. It felt good to focus on something I could actually fix. At lunch, Vince called. How did it go yesterday? Better than expected. I think I got their attention. What's the next move? That depends on them. If they want to handle this quietly, we can do that. If they want to make it complicated, then we make it complicated right back. Exactly. I didn't have to wait long for their answer. At 3 o'clock, my phone rang. It was Robin, and she sounded furious. "How dare you humiliate me like that?" she said without preamble. "Humiliate you? I had a private conversation with your boyfriend, very discreet. Julian is talking about filing a restraining order. For what? I never threatened him. You threatened to destroy his business. I promised to expose the truth about his business. There's a difference." Robin was quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice was colder. "I want half of everything, Sam. The house, the retirement accounts, the girls." "The girls aren't property, Robin. I'm their mother." "Then act like it. I'll see you in court." She hung up, and I sat in my truck outside the construction site, staring at my phone. So that's how it was going to be. No quiet resolution, no attempt to minimize the damage to our daughters. Robin wanted a war. She was about to get one. I called my lawyer, David Chen, and scheduled an emergency meeting. Then I called Vince. "Change of plans," I said. "We're going nuclear. What do you need?" "Everything. Every detail of their affair, every lie she's told, every time she's put her own interests ahead of our daughters. I want a complete picture." "That's going to take time." "We've got time. Family court moves slowly. And money, I've got money." That evening, I picked up the girls from their after-school programs and took them out for pizza. It felt like a celebration, even though I wasn't sure what we were celebrating. "Dad," Tessa said, spinning cheese around her fork, "are you okay?" "I'm better than I've been in a long time." "Good. You've been sad for months." "I didn't like it." Mia nodded seriously. "You smile more now." I looked at my daughters and realized they were right. Despite everything that was happening, despite the divorce, and the custody battle that was coming, I felt lighter. The pretense was over. The lies were in the open. For the first time in months, I knew exactly where I stood. "I love you, girls," I said. "We love you too, Daddy," Mia said. "Even when you're being weird," Tessa added with a grin. We finished our pizza and drove home, where I helped with homework and made sure teeth were brushed and stories were read. Normal family routines that felt precious now that I knew how easily they could be destroyed. After the girls were asleep, I sat in my home office, surrounded by documents and evidence that Vince had compiled. Photos of Robin and Julian at restaurants, hotels, and other locations around town. Credit card statements showing expensive dinners and weekend getaways. Text messages that painted a picture of two people who thought they were smarter than everyone around them. The most damning evidence was a recorded phone conversation between Robin and Casey, captured by the surveillance equipment in our kitchen. In it, Robin talked about her plans to take Sam for everything he's worth and make sure she got primary custody of the girls so he can't poison them against me. She also talked about Julian's promise to take care of her once the divorce was final and their plans to move to Vermont where they could start fresh. I listened to my wife casually discuss destroying my relationship with my daughters, and I felt something cold and final settle in my chest. This wasn't just about infidelity anymore. This was about two selfish people who saw my children as pawns in their game. They had no idea what they were dealing with. I opened my laptop and began typing. If Robin wanted a war, I was going to give her one, but it would be fought on my terms, with my rules, and she was going to lose everything that mattered to her, starting with Julian Grant. Julian Grant's downfall began with a phone call to the Connecticut Real Estate Commission. I'd spent 3 days researching his business practices, and what I found was a pattern of ethical violations that went back years. "I'd like to report possible license violations," I told the investigator who took my call. "What kind of violations?" "Misrepresentation of properties, failure to disclose conflicts of interest, and inappropriate relationships with clients." I had documentation for all of it. Julian had a habit of getting personally involved with female clients, particularly wealthy divorcees looking to downsize. He'd been sued twice for breach of fiduciary duty, and both cases had been settled quietly out of court. The investigator was interested, very interested. While the state began their investigation, I launched my own campaign. Julian's success was built on reputation and referrals. Take those away, and his business would collapse like a house of cards. I started with social media. Julian was active on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, always posting about successful sales and happy clients. I created anonymous accounts and began commenting on his posts with questions about his business practices. "Isn't this the guy who got sued by the Morrison family?" I'd write under one post. "I heard he's under investigation by the state," under another. The comments were always phrased as questions, never accusations. I was careful to stay within legal boundaries while planting seeds of doubt in the minds of potential clients. Next, I targeted his referral network. Julian got most of his business from divorce attorneys, financial planners, and other professionals who recommended him to their clients. I began making anonymous calls to these contacts, asking if they were aware of the state investigation and the ethical complaints. "I just thought you should know," I'd say. "I'd hate for your clients to get caught up in any legal problems." Within a week, Julian's referrals began drying up. Lawyers stopped recommending him. Financial planners found other realtors to work with. His carefully constructed network of professional relationships began crumbling. But I wasn't done. Julian's personal life was as carefully constructed as his professional image. He drove an expensive car, lived in a luxury condo, and maintained a lifestyle that suggested wealth and success. What he actually had was massive debt and a business that was one bad month away from bankruptcy. I made sure his creditors knew about the state investigation. I made sure his landlord knew about the declining business. I made sure everyone in his professional and personal circle understood that Julian Grant was not the successful businessman he pretended to be. The final blow came when I contacted his ex-wives. Sarah Grant, his first ex-wife, lived in Boston with their teenage son. She was a successful attorney who'd walked away from their marriage with nothing rather than fight a prolonged custody battle. "I remember you," she said when I called. "You're the husband." "That's right. I'm sorry, Julian has a pattern. I'm trying to stop the pattern." She was quiet for a moment. "What do you need?" "The truth. About who he really is." Sarah Grant had kept meticulous records of Julian's affairs, his lies, and his financial manipulations during their marriage. She'd never used them because she'd wanted to protect their son, but she was willing to share them now. "He destroyed our family," she said. "If I can prevent him from destroying yours, I want to help." His second ex-wife, Jennifer, was even more forthcoming. Julian had left her financially ruined, and she'd spent years rebuilding her credit and her life. "He's a hunter," she said bluntly. "He targets vulnerable women and bleeds them dry." Both women agreed to provide sworn affidavits detailing Julian's behavior during their marriages. The picture they painted was of a man who was charming and attentive during the courtship phase, then controlling and manipulative once he had what he wanted. It was exactly the pattern he was following with Robin. By the end of the second week, Julian's world was collapsing. The state investigation was moving forward. His business was failing. His creditors were circling. His carefully constructed image was in ruins. He called me on a Thursday afternoon, his voice shaking with rage and desperation. "You son of a witch," he said. "You're destroying my life." "I'm exposing your life," I corrected. "There's a difference. I'll sue you for maltreatment." "With what money?" "I hear your business is having some financial difficulties." "Robin told me you were pathetic, but I didn't realize how pathetic." "How is Robin, by the way? Still planning to move to Vermont with you?" Julian was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was different, smaller, defeated. "What do you want?" "I want you to disappear, permanently. No more contact with my wife, no more involvement with my family, find another town, another state, another life. And if I don't, then I'll make sure everyone knows about the maltreatment complaints from your former employees. I'll make sure your son in Boston knows what kind of man his father really is. I'll make sure your creditors know about every asset you're trying to hide." "You fool." "I'm a father protecting his family. You're a hunter who got caught." Julian hung up without another word. 3 days later, his Tesla disappeared from the real estate office parking lot. His secretary told clients he'd taken a leave of absence for personal reasons. His condo went up for sale, and his social media accounts went dark. Julian Grant had vanished from our lives as suddenly as he'd appeared. But Robin was still there, and she was furious. "How could you do that to him?" she screamed at me over the phone. "The same way he did it to his first 2 wives," I said calmly. "Julian loves me. Julian loves what you represent, a successful woman with assets he can access. You're not special, Robin. You're just his latest mark. You're lying. Ask Sarah Grant. Ask Jennifer Morrison. Ask any of the women he's targeted over the years." Robin hung up, but I knew the seeds of doubt were planted. Julian's disappearance would be hard to explain, and Robin was smart enough to start asking questions. The answers she found would destroy whatever feelings she had left for him. But by then, it would be too late for our marriage. Some things, once broken, can't be repaired. I was okay with that. I had my daughters, I had my integrity, and I had the satisfaction of knowing I'd protected other families from Julian Grant's carnivory behavior. It was enough. More than enough. Robin came home on a Tuesday evening in November, 6 weeks after Julian Grant had disappeared from our lives. She looked older, worn down by the reality of what her affair had cost her. The girls were at soccer practice, so we had the house to ourselves for the first time since everything had started. "We need to talk," she said, settling into the chair across from me in the living room. "I'm listening. I made a mistake. A huge mistake." I waited, saying nothing. "Julian wasn't who I thought he was," she continued. "The things you said about him, about his past, they were true. I know. He used me, Sam. He made me believe that what we had was real, that he loved me, that we had a future together. I tried to warn you." Robin's eyes flashed with anger. "You destroyed him. You systematically ruined his life. I exposed him. There's a difference." "Is there? You drove him out of town like some kind of vigilante?" I leaned forward, looking directly at her. "He was a hunter, Robin. He targeted vulnerable women and destroyed their lives. I stopped him from doing it again. By destroying our marriage in the process." "Our marriage was already destroyed. You just hadn't admitted it yet." We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of 15 years settling between us like dust. "The girls need their mother," Robin said finally. "The girls need a mother who puts them first. When was the last time you did that? That's not fair, isn't it? You took them to a romantic weekend with your lover. You introduced him as their uncle. You lied to them about where you were going and what you were doing." Robin's face crumpled. I know I messed up." "You didn't mess up, Robin. You made choices, deliberate, selfish choices that put your own desires ahead of your children's well-being." "I can change." "Can you? Because this isn't the first time you've been selfish. It's just the first time you got caught." I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the street where we'd lived for 8 years. Normal houses with normal families dealing with normal problems. "Do you remember when Mia was born?" I asked. "Of course. You had postpartum depression. Severe postpartum depression. You couldn't get out of bed for weeks." "I remember. I took care of everything. Mia, Tessa, the house, my job. I got up every 2 hours to feed the baby so you could sleep. I held you when you cried and told you it would get better. You were wonderful. And when you got better, when the medication kicked in and you started feeling like yourself again, what did you do?" Robin was quiet. "You went back to work full-time. You started going out with friends again. You joined the book club and the wine club and the charity committee. You rebuilt your social life, but you never rebuilt your relationship with your daughters." "That's not true. Isn't it? When was the last time you helped with homework? When was the last time you went to a soccer game or a school play or a parent-teacher conference? I work full-time. So do I, but I still show up." Robin stood up, pacing to the other side of the room. "So what are you saying? That I'm a terrible mother?" "I'm saying you're an absent mother, and absent mothers don't get to demand custody when their marriages fall apart." "The girls love me. The girls love the idea of you. They love the mother they wish you were. But they don't really know you, Robin. Because you've never let them." The truth hung in the air between us, ugly and undeniable. "I can do better," Robin said, but her voice lacked conviction. "Maybe, but not here, not with us." "What does that mean?" "It means I'm filing for divorce. It means I'm asking for primary custody. It means this marriage is over." Robin sank back into her chair, the fight going out of her. "Just like that? Not just like that. This has been building for years. The affair was just the final straw. What about counseling? What about trying to work things out? What about the fact that you spent 6 months lying to my face? What about the fact that you involved our daughters in your deception? What about the fact that even now you're more concerned about being caught than about the damage you've done?" Robin started crying, the kind of desperate tears that come when someone realizes they've lost something irreplaceable. "I love you, Sam. I know I haven't shown it, but I do love you. You love the security I provide. You love having someone to take care of the hard parts of life while you focus on the fun parts. That's not the same thing as loving me. Please, don't do this to our family." "I'm not doing this to our family. I'm trying to save what's left of it." The front door opened, and I heard Tessa and Mia coming in from practice, their voices bright and energetic as they talked about their games. "Dad, we're home," Mia called. "In the living room," I called back. Both girls appeared in the doorway, still in their soccer uniforms, cleats in hand. They saw Robin and stopped, uncertain. "Hi, Mom," Tessa said carefully. "Hi, baby," Robin said, wiping her eyes. "How was practice?" "Good. I scored 3 goals in scrimmage," Mia said. "That's wonderful." But the conversation felt forced, artificial. The girls exchanged a look, then Tessa spoke up. "Are you guys getting divorced?" The question was direct, matter of fact. Tessa had always been good at cutting through adult nonsense to get to the truth. "Yes," I said. "We are." "Good," Tessa said, surprising both Robin and me. "You guys have been miserable for months. At least now you can stop pretending." Mia looked confused. "Does that mean Mom's moving out?" "We haven't figured out all the details yet," I said. "But yes, probably." "Can we stay here with you?" Mia asked. Robin flinched as if she'd been slapped. "Mia, sweetheart, don't you want to live with Mommy?" Mia considered this seriously. "Will you still lie to us?" What? "You lied about where we were going that weekend. You lied about Uncle Julian. You lie about a lot of things. I was trying to protect you." "Dad doesn't lie to us," Tessa said, "even when the truth is hard." Robin looked at our daughters, really looked at them, and I saw the moment she realized she'd already lost them. Not because I'd turned them against her, but because she'd never really tried to earn their trust in the first place. "I should go," she said quietly. "Robin," I said as she reached the door, "you can still be their mother. They need you to be their mother, but you have to decide what that means to you." She nodded without turning around and left. The girls and I stood in the living room listening to her car pull out of the driveway. "Are you sad, Dad?" Mia asked. I thought about it. A little, but mostly I'm relieved. "Me too," Tessa said. "Me 3, Mia added. We ordered pizza that night and watched movies until way past bedtime. It felt like a celebration, like the beginning of something new and better. 6 months later, the divorce was final. Robin got visitation rights every other weekend, which she used sporadically. She moved to Hartford, closer to her mother, and got a job with a smaller company. Julian Grant never came back. I heard through Vince that he'd moved to Florida and was working as a car salesman. His real estate license had been revoked, and his financial problems had followed him south. The girls and I settled into our new life. I coached Mia's soccer team and helped Tessa with her high school applications. We took vacations and had adventures and built the kind of close relationship that I'd always wanted with my daughters. Sometimes, late at night, I wondered if I'd been too hard on Robin, too unforgiving. But then I'd remember the lies, the manipulation, the casual way she'd involved our children in her deception, and I knew I'd made the right choice. Some people deserve second chances. Some people deserve forgiveness, and some people deserve exactly what they get. Robin got what she deserved, Julian got what he deserved, and my daughters and I got what we deserved. A chance to be a real family, built on truth and trust and unconditional love. It was more than enough. It was everything.